It all started the day I got promoted. After years of working dead-end jobs, I finally landed a position at one of the top consulting firms in the city. It felt like everything I had worked for was finally paying off. My boss, Ms. Lara, was known for being sharp, bold, and impossible to impress. So, when she started noticing my work, I was flattered, maybe even a bit proud. She started calling me into her office more often, praising how I handled clients and deadlines. At first, it was just professional. She was direct, confident, and in control. But over time, things started to feel different. She began asking me personal questions, what I did on weekends, if I was dating anyone, what kind of woman I liked. I answered casually, not thinking too much about it. But then came the compliments. "You clean up well," she once said during a meeting, her eyes lingering longer than usual. Another time, she laughed a little too hard at a joke I made that wasn't even funny. I told myself it was nothing. She was probably just being friendly. Still, the way she looked at me wasn't the way a boss usually looked at her employee. One Friday, after most of the office had cleared out, she asked me to stay behind to go over a proposal. We worked side by side, our laptops open, her perfume faint in the air. At some point, our hands reached for the same printed sheet. Our fingers touched. She didn't pull away, and neither did I. It was just a second, maybe two. But in that second, something changed. She gave a soft smile and said, "You're really something, you know that?" I laughed it off, pretending I didn't feel the electricity, but it stayed with me the whole night. The whispers started not long after. A colleague joked, "How does it feel to be the golden boy?" I laughed, but the way he said it made me feel exposed. I started second-guessing every interaction. Was I imagining it? Was she just being nice? Or was there something more happening? It felt like I was walking a tightrope, unsure whether I was reading too much into things or not enough. I didn't know what line was being drawn, but I could feel that it was close and getting closer. I started noticing the way she brushed her hair back when talking to me, how she found excuses to lean in when looking at my screen, or how she always sat just a little too close. I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. But deep down, I knew I was no longer just her employee. I was someone she had taken a special interest in. And despite everything, I couldn't help but feel intrigued. This wasn't part of any career plan. But something was happening, and whether I liked it or not, I was already part of it. It was a rainy Thursday evening when she asked me to stay back again. Most of the team had already left, and I assumed it would be another late night polishing reports. But this time was different. Her office lights were dimmed, and two glasses sat on her desk beside a half-open bottle of red wine. "You've earned this," she said, pouring me a glass. I hesitated, but she insisted. The conversation moved from numbers and strategy to dreams, regrets, and loneliness. She spoke about her divorce like it was old news, like it had left her hollow. Then she looked me in the eyes and said, "You're not like the others. You see me." The moment didn't feel like a mistake. It felt chosen. When she leaned forward and kissed me, it was slow and deliberate. I froze for a second, then gave in. All the tension that had been building came crashing down in one moment. We didn't speak about it afterward. No awkwardness. Just silence and understanding. The next morning, we acted like nothing happened. But the texts began, short, flirtatious, cryptic. She would drop compliments between client feedback. I started sneaking out of the office during lunch breaks to meet her at discreet places. Hotel lobbies, side cafes, her condo late at night. It was passionate, exciting, and wrong. She promised this was just between us, that no one would find out. But things escalated quickly. She told me she wanted to help me move up faster, that I had potential no one else saw. Suddenly, I was leading bigger projects, attending meetings with top executives, being praised in company-wide emails. I should have felt proud. Instead, I felt watched. My coworkers began to treat me differently. Some gave me knowing looks. Others avoided me altogether. I was winning, but it didn't feel like success. I convinced myself we were in love, that this wasn't just about ambition or lust. She whispered things like, "I haven't felt alive like this in years," and "You're the only one who sees the real me." It felt real enough. I stopped dating, stopped going out with friends, stopped replying to texts from people who once mattered. Everything revolved around her, her schedule, her rules, her approval. I told myself it was temporary. That one day, we'd be open. But that day never came. She controlled the pace, the boundaries, the narrative. Even then, I ignored the warning signs. The way she snapped when I mentioned other women. How she never let me call her during the day. How she flinched when I asked what we were. I thought I was special. I thought I mattered. I didn't realize I was playing a role in a script she'd written long before I showed up. And somewhere deep down, I think I knew I wasn't the first. But I still believed I might be the last. That illusion kept me hooked, even as everything else around me started to crack. It all fell apart faster than I ever imagined. One Saturday, I decided to surprise her. She had been distant for days, replying late, canceling plans without reason. I convinced myself it was work stress. I went to her condo with the spare keys she gave me, thinking a quiet dinner would fix everything. I walked in and immediately sensed something was off. There was laughter, 2 voices. I turned the corner and froze. She was on the couch with a man, legs casually crossed, a wine glass in hand, looking relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in weeks. She didn't even flinch when she saw me. Instead, she calmly stood up and said, "You weren't supposed to be here." The man looked confused, then amused, like I was some intruder. She introduced me as her junior, then excused herself and pulled me into the kitchen. Her voice was low but sharp. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," she said. I asked who the man was. "My ex-husband," she replied. "We're trying to work things out." I couldn't breathe. I asked if what we had meant anything. She didn't answer, just stared at me with a coldness I didn't recognize. "You were a good distraction," she finally said. I walked out without a word. My hands shook the whole way home. The next morning, I woke up to an email from HR. A formal complaint had been filed against me, unprofessional conduct and boundary violations. I knew immediately what this was. She was erasing me, covering her tracks, making sure if anything came out, she was protected. I went to the office hoping to talk to her, to clear things. But her assistant said she was unavailable for the week. I was pulled into a meeting later that afternoon. HR was cold, clinical. They said the company was placing me on temporary leave while they investigated. I tried to explain, but there was no proof, no texts, no recordings, nothing that showed the truth. I had deleted everything to protect her. Now it only served her. My name was being whispered in corridors. Colleagues I once joked with now avoided eye contact. The same people who once praised me now treated me like a liability. I felt stupid. Not just for falling for her, but for giving her so much power over me. She had played the long game. I was just a move on her board. I wanted to scream, to expose her, but there was nothing left to fight with. The woman who once made me feel seen had turned me invisible. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was realizing how easily she replaced me, how effortlessly she made me disappear. Everything I built, every bit of progress, it all meant nothing now. I was alone, disgraced, and completely expendable. The weeks that followed were silent. No calls, no messages, not even a hint of acknowledgement from her. The HR investigation concluded with a carefully worded warning and a mutual agreement to terminate my position. They said it was to protect the company's image, but I knew what it really meant. I had been erased. My reputation was bruised beyond repair. No one cared about my side of the story. I became that guy, the one who got too close to the boss, the one who should have known better. I stopped applying for jobs. Every time I reached out, there was a pause in the conversation once they saw where I had worked. My name was tainted. I moved out of the city and stayed with my brother for a while. I couldn't bear to walk those streets or pass the building that had once held my dreams. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, not the woman I thought I knew, but the version that smiled while tearing me down. It wasn't just about the job or the betrayal. It was about how easily she stripped me of everything and walked away untouched. I kept replaying it all, trying to find the moment I should have walked away. But the truth is, I never stood a chance. I was drawn in by the illusion, by the attention, by the promise of something real in a world built on pretense. Then one day, months later, I saw a post online, a photo of her at a corporate event, standing beside her husband, smiling, arm in arm, as if none of it ever happened. She was promoted to a regional director, celebrated, respected, untouched. And I was rebuilding from scratch. There was anger, yes, but mostly there was shame. Not for what we did, but for how I let myself believe in her. For thinking I mattered more than I did. For confusing desire with connection, ambition with love. Eventually, I started writing again. Not about her, not directly, but about people like her and people like me, those who fall for the illusion, those who get caught in someone else's story without realizing they're just a chapter. I rebuilt slowly, got a freelance gig, started fresh. No shortcuts this time, no borrowed power, no dangerous charms. Just me, my skills, and the lessons I paid for in full. She never reached out. Not once. And maybe that's for the best. Because if she did, part of me might still want to believe her again. But I won't. Some wounds stay to remind you. Not of pain, but of clarity. I know better now. I know what betrayal dressed in romance looks like. I know what happens when the line between affection and ambition blurs. And I know that next time, I won't need to learn it the hard way.